at the time when the boys were born, it was all about black boys in education, all the research and the projects, and they were failing. And I thought, my boys aren't going to fail. I wasn't going to rely on the system to educate my boys. I'm an alternative provision now. I can have a bespoke curriculum based on the children's needs, and I can differentiate and give them more, and aid their learning instead of having this structure that they can't access at school. The school mainstream can't cope. What kind of foundation are they going to put in the mainstream to enable them to cope? Not every teacher's got into education to look after children with SEN or teach children with SEN because they know they're not equipped.
Right. Welcome back to the Social Corner. Today I'm in the heart of Birmingham and I'm joined by an incredible guest whose passion for inclusion and education has changed the lives of countless children and families. She's the founder of Diamonds in the Rough, which is an organisation dedicated to supporting parents and children with autism and learning difficulties through its specialised tuition centre, advocating for families and advising on inclusive education. She is a true force for change, loved by many, and I'm honoured that she's here today. Jacqueline Anderson, welcome to the Social Corner.
I should probably
maybe address that we've got the same surname for a reason.
Yes.
So we are sisters.
Yes. Not really. Yeah. No, I didn't know we was going to say that.
Well,
you see, yeah.
Because you're Anderson, I'm Anderson, so it's kind of like, but we are sisters. But
yes.
I'm really happy that you've come on today because actually I think that this has been a story that's long not been told that needs to... I'm always on at you saying, you need to kind of get your story out there. You need to explain, all this great work that you're doing, but it's not necessarily being heard as to why it's happened, how it got to be. And I just think it's a really inspiring story. So I'm actually really glad that you've come on today. So just for context, there are, there's what, about 12 years between us? 12 or 13?
Yes.
Yeah. But
12.
when I was casting my mind back to growing up, I was thinking I'm too young to remember your earlier years, if that makes sense.
Okay.
So
who did you ask?
I didn't ask anyone. So I said to myself, let me ask you.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
How would you describe yourself growing up?
I was an observer of people growing up because... yeah, people are just strange. It was strange. So I was very observed because I was the fourth. I was fourth in line, so I was the little one. So I get to watch things. Yeah. And if you kept quiet, you get to hear people talk. So that's what I was just observing. Did
you know that you were an observer at the time, or was it just...
No, I can reflect now. But, children were to be seen but not heard. Right. And in a Caribbean household, you do not enter into adults' conversation or show that you can understand what they're talking about.
Yeah. So you just kind of...
be quiet. Yeah, you just be quiet and you just,
So were you able to establish difference between you and other people at that time?
Okay. So when we was younger, we lived in a cul-de-sac. So we were allowed to go out and we allowed to... it was that kind of, because everyone was used to be watching from the windows, parents were watching, different parents would be watching, because we had a, what would you call it? They all faced into like a green area.
Oh, like a courtyard.
Yeah, like a courtyard, yes. Yeah. So we were allowed to go out. So I was allowed to go out from 4 or 5. I remember going out and walking over the grass to the garages and sitting down and just watching the world. I was only little, I remember the short suit I had on.
Did you never feel like the inclination, like you wanted to go and play with the people or anything like that?
Oh, no, we did play. Okay. Oh, gosh, we did play. But I was also good at being by myself.
Yeah.
From young. Because I used to read a lot. I was reading from a very young age.
So speaking of young age, can you recall your earliest memory of feeling like you didn't see the world the way everyone else did?
When people used to say that I was being something that I wasn't, because I wasn't, I wasn't typical. If you asked me something, I'd tell you the truth. And that doesn't always go down well as a child.
Right.
Yes, because they say, you know, you're too feisty or whatever. But you shouldn't ask me if you didn't want the truth, because I would not have offered the information. So there you go.
I think what I'm getting at is because you're still very much like, you know, you're very observant, you know, you're very kind of able to kind of sum things up in a way that I suppose most people probably either don't want to look at or you know, but you've talked about, like, in your adult stages, saying, you know, that you're somewhere on the spectrum or whatever else, and then describing like your younger self. I wonder if you can identify things like your
possibly, because I used to
behaviours.
have projects.
Right.
I used to like pick a project and kill it. You know, like if you know what I mean, like because you know, as you're at school and you used to finish, if you finished your work early, they say go and draw this or go and draw that. Now I'd been finishing my work early from infant school, so because like in infant school, they used to let me walk. I think back and I was wandering around school and nobody bothered me. Because I finished the work, the teacher would let me, it said go to the library, which was one little bookcase with adult books in. Right. So that's when I started reading as well. Yeah. And so, people generally just left me alone.
So you just kind of just moving through spaces and no one's paying any attention?
Yeah, because I'd already done what I was supposed to do. Okay. So as long as you finished your work, I suppose they couldn't entertain me. And when I finished, I'd start chatting anyway, because I'm done. So yeah, I suppose they just let me do what, and they used to try and give me guitar lessons, send me out to do sewing, send me out to do choir practice and all these things. I got those opportunities in junior school that a lot of children didn't get because I think they were just trying to keep me busy. Right. Which always stuck in my mind for my own children when they went to school. I didn't want them to be bored. I remember being bored, very bored. Yeah.
Did that ever manifest into any type of behaviour or anything like that? Chatting.
And I was always curious.
But how did your experience of having children then lead you onto your path now?
Okay. Yeah, well, I've always loved education. I always like to learn. And I always like to see young people, you know, young minds expanding and learning things. So I was all about education. You ask the nieces and nephews, they got books. Yeah. As well as presents, but generally they've got books. They've got books till now. They showed one of my nieces showed me the book that I gave her years ago when she was little. So yeah, and even now the books that I have at the office, some of them have still got the names of my boys in there because they were their workbooks. Okay, so I've always been about education because you remember I told you that I used to finish early at school and the teacher would make me go around and help both children.
How would you describe your experience of education then when growing up?
Education, teachers have a responsibility, yes. Yeah. But when we were growing up, everybody thought that they had that responsibility and you just had to listen to everything that they said or put down. But not everything was always right. They did not always know what was best for you as a child.
But at such a young age, how did you have the confidence to know, to even question what they said? Because I think as children, we just go and teacher said this and then you do this, you know what I mean? But
because it wasn't, a lot of the time it wasn't logical. It did not make sense and it did not take into account personalities. I can say that now. I didn't have that language when I was younger, but I have it now, so I can reflect and say that they could have done more. Yeah. I was quite bored at school.
It sounds to me like they didn't pick up on what you needed at that time.
No, they didn't, except one teacher, the deputy head, when I was in the 4th year. I don't know what they call it. What did they call it now? Year 6? Yeah. Yeah, they call it year 6 now. So yeah, she picked up that that I needed more. So she used to teach me the guitar. So so she used to let me sit on a chair next to her and we'd do the singing and I'd play the guitar with her because she played the guitar as well. Oh, okay. Yes, you know, I've always loved guitars.
Yeah. That's where that came from.
Yeah, no, but I did do classical, you know, when before she came along, we did They did put. I remember I told you they used to put me into things to keep me entertained. So occupied, I think, not entertained, occupied more than anything. So yeah, she saw me. I met her again when I was at uni, and I recognised her, but she didn't recognise me.
Did you remind her?
No, because she was very important in that, because she saw me.
Yeah.
And,
Was that your first experience of being seen?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
About time? No, not really. No, and I didn't think of it as anything, I just took it and went with it. Yeah, so I didn't think on that level in regards to being seen, because my attitude is that life's life. You just get on with it.
So you had children in your 20s,
yes.
And then, as I said, you had 2 boys. How did your experience having children and what you've experienced, like especially in the education system, begin to impact how you saw what you wanted for them going through the education system?
Okay, yeah. So I always, at the time when the boys were born, it was all about Black boys in education, all the research and the projects, and they were failing. And I thought, my boys aren't going to fail. So I was ready before anything, before they even went to school, I was ready. I taught them, as I said, I used to teach them. I wasn't going to rely on the system to educate my boys. Because I didn't rely on the system to educate me. So why would I do that?
Right.
Yeah, so I sent them for the social aspect, really, and how to learn how to get on with the people that they're going to be living with and growing up around. But because even teaching them to read before they went to school, the teacher told me one time that you didn't teach, they don't know phonics, you didn't teach them how to read properly, but they could read. But they still wasn't happy because I didn't teach them the phonic way. But they were quite capable readers, which didn't make sense to me. Why say that to me? It didn't make no sense if the child can read. And if they can decipher words. So,
because surely once they get to school, it would be about, okay, well, you teach them the phonics. They've already got the basics of reading.
Yeah, well, teaching them to read was not an issue. I didn't find any difficulty with them learning to read. I don't remember any issues in regards to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't find it difficult. They didn't struggle.
Yeah.
So I didn't think anything of it. Now that I teach phonics, I know the purpose of it.
Yeah.
But just because they didn't go that route, it didn't matter. Why did you have to stick so rigidly to a system? And if they were outside the system, then they just fuss.
I think a lot of people now would talk about the fact that the education system is very rigid, and it's kind of set up to this is pass, this is fail, and if there's nothing in between.
No.
Do you think that's effective?
It's becoming not fit for purpose.
Right.
You hear a lot. I mean, everything is about it's paperwork, policies. Teaching children, you have to get down on the level, you have to engage them. But we're teaching them to pass, well, not me, they're teaching them to pass exams without it's mechanical. There's no heart in it for the children. They're just doing what they need to do.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I'm like, my curriculum, because I'm an alternative provision now, I can have a bespoke curriculum based on the children's needs, and I can differentiate and give them more, and aid their learning instead of having this structure that they can't access at school. See, it's not built for them to access. And now the education secretary is coming in, and she wants to put all children with SEN back into mainstream schools. Now, how is that going to work?
What's the implication of that? So SEN, we're talking about special education needs.
Yeah.
What's the implication of putting all children with SEN back into mainstream schools?
The mainstream can't cope. What kind of foundation are they going to put in the mainstream to enable them to cope?
Yeah.
Not every teacher's gone into education to look after children with SEN or teach children with SEN because they know they're not equipped.
Right.
because even when I was training, when we used to get our placements, I'd watch the other trainees they're looking through to see how many SEND they've got in their class because they thought it was going to be difficult.
Right.
But me, watching that, I was disgusted because you're sending your children into these people, but they don't. Not everybody can work with children with SEN. Not everybody wants to. So you can't just put everyone in the mainstream and think everyone's going to go along with it. It just doesn't suit some people. No, some people are not equipped.
I think it's important for us to understand, why you're so passionate about this as well, because, and, I go back to you having your boys, and there came a point, obviously, for yourself where you realised that one of them wasn't learning the same as I suppose everyone else. How would you describe? I
had my eldest son, and 16 months later I had the other one. So I knew ages and stages of development because I've always been around children, and any child that came into the family under me, I always had something to do with them raising them. So I knew that there was delay in the speech. So I went to the doctor. Doctor didn't know anything, so they sent me to pediatrics. But in the back of my mind, I knew something was different, and then went for diagnosis. But
when you say something was different,
the development, because it was the lack of the speech. It was delayed speech.
Right.
But in other ways, smart as a button.
Right.
I used to watch him with a computer. Those new he never opened it with his hands, always opened it with his feet, which was very interesting to watch. But he could do things, and he could even, like, if it was behind him and it says, find the letter this, it just turn around and go like that, and he could do it.
Wow.
And I used to watch him, and I thought, he's not even looking, he knows where everything is. He'd be doing something and just go like that. And all the things, he showed me how smart he was in himself.
Yeah.
So he got diagnosed as the pediatric doctor.
Yeah.
He told me, and of course I was thinking, black boy in education, black boy in Britain, all of that kind of stuff. And I thought, oh, here we go. Here's time. I'm going to have to battle.
What did he get diagnosed with?
Autism.
Autism.
On the autism spectrum, yes.
So I remember, obviously, coming, I was living at home then, but you'd come to the house and you told us that he'd been diagnosed with autism.
Yes.
I'd never heard of autism at that point. And this is going to sound really bad, but it wasn't really prominent at that stage. I didn't feel like it was.
Well,
it was something quite new.
It was because, at the time, there wasn't a lot of diagnoses. Because I got my son diagnosed at the age of 3, and a lot of people were asking me, how did you do that?
How did you do that? Because people are still waiting for diagnosis now.
No, because at the time, the early diagnosis wasn't really done unless there was really severe autism. And because he would have been just under the invisible spectrum and just passed. But because I knew about the development stages, I knew, because even his assessment, his plan, it was called a statement at the time.
Right.
They're my words.
Right.
When he was doing that, I was telling them this, that, and the other, because I know my child. I know both my child. I was, as I said, observant, so I could tell them. And so it just fitted in. So yeah, his statement is basically what I told them about him. Nothing that they discovered in the assessment that I could see. Because even watching them work with him, I says, I was watching them work with them, I'm thinking, you're not going to get anything out of that. So it was the approach.
Right.
Okay, so eventually got the diagnosis, and I knew it was coming. And they delayed telling me because the doctor was on holiday. And of course, I cried. It was just built up because I was waiting for it. I was waiting. So I did cry, and the doctor asked me, why do black mothers cry?
What?
Yeah, this is what he asked me. He says,
what?
A lot of black mothers, they start crying. And I says, I'll tell you why I'm crying. I says, because of my child is a black boy in education and in Britain, and I know I'm going to have to battle. But that was my last tears, trust me, because I didn't have time after that. Because it was a battle.
Was that a cry, a war cry, or a cry of relief? What was in that?
There was no relief in it. It's just like, it was just... this is what I tell parents, right? You have a plan in your head when you get pregnant. You think, this is my, and you start planning ahead and all this stuff. But I knew, so you are allowed to grieve the life you thought you were going to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always say, embrace that. You're allowed to grieve that, but then get on with it, you know, and prepare to battle.
And you battled.
Oh boy.
You battled.
I battled, and it was successful in the end, but I was not abandoning my child to the system. Do you know what I mean? I didn't trust them to do the best for my child. And if I hadn't battled, he would not be where he is now.
And he's doing very well.
Oh, yeah.
We'll get there. But I just want to go back to stay in that kind of season at that time, because you received this diagnosis, you know, you had your tears. I can't believe he asked you that question.
Yeah.
And I just wonder, actually, was he asking you that question because, is it in comparison to white mothers, is he saying?
I don't know. I think he was interested.
Right.
He just wanted to know, and I thought he felt, because you know how I talk to people.
Yeah.
I'm just straightforward. You ask me a question, I'm going to answer it, you know. So I think he felt that he could ask me that question.
Right, okay.
But like, because I think he was curious, because eventually he went back and studied more. Because I used to have to come every few months with my little red book, but I was still telling him, because I'd already deep dived it. Right. So, and he was saying, oh, and thinking I was going to be stressed. No, I didn't have time to be stressed and crying about it. I was moving on, and so they unregistered. I mean, they said I didn't have to come back. They says, you seem to be doing fine. Every time you come, there's nothing we can help you with. So you don't have to come back. And I didn't.
Oh. See, I'm learning more now, because I was there, but I didn't see all of these that was going on.
I didn't have to go back, and he went back to study.
He went back to study.
Yeah,
to study why black mothers cry.
No, probably to study about autism, because people work in an autistic field, and they didn't have the background knowledge really. You know, because it was still pretty new. Yeah. So I talked to many people who's supposed to be, and I thought, you don't.
Yeah. You don't know. Do you see that thinking about that emotion that you had at that moment when you got the diagnosis? Do you see that same emotion in the parents of the children that you work with now?
The main thing is knowledge is power. And because I liked learning, I could go and I just went out and did a lot of knowledge. Because I went back to college and I went to uni after children.
Because I want to ask you about that, actually, because this has happened. You've understood all of this, and then what has switched on in you? What's happened? Like, something's turned and you've said, right, I'm going down this route to find out everything I need to know with regards to this.
In regards to autism, yes, I would do that because it's my child and I need to know. But even then, I turned off, because remember, it was very negative information.
Right.
All at that time, everything was negative. They won't be able to do this. Won't. And I thought, as I said, that wasn't my child. And I had high expectations of him, and I believed in him because I seen it, the spark in him. I seen the intelligence, and I didn't. Because they wanted to put him into special school. And I says, no, I want him in mainstream school, just because he wasn't talking. But that's another story. He was selective.
Oh, he talked when he wanted to?
He talked when in emergency. And we found out, sorry, excuse me. Yeah. We found out that he could, but that was only in a state of emergency when he went missing.
That he spoke. Oh,
and he told the police, he told the woman to find, this is my mummy's car. He gave a full sentence.
So let's just explain that, because you went shopping, didn't you?
Yeah, we went down to a regular shop that we always used to do, but I parked somewhere different. And I walked, it was one stop, and I walked down, crossed 2 roads. I went down just to get a statement. Now, usually when we went to one stop, we'd go to McDonald's or anything. So I looked at the statement, and then he was gone.
Wow.
So I thought maybe he'd walk to McDonald's, be thinking that's the way we're going to go. Like,
because routine is a big part of it.
Yeah. So I thought, so I was running around looking. It was the worst. It was the worst. But he'd walked back to the car, where we'd never parked before.
Yeah.
And I keep wondering, didn't these people see this little boy, this little 3 or 4 year old boy walking across the zebra crossing, standing with them at the zebra crossing, walking that one, and then walking across the second one, walking up around into the car park. Look at this lady found him. And she oh gosh, yeah, it was the worst. It was the worst.
But he managed to tell her.
He says, that's my mummy's car. He walked back to the car and says, that's my mummy's car. By that time, I'd already phoned the police. The woman phoned the police. The police said, phone me back and says, oh, we found him. And then I got to there and he was in the police van. He reached down, pulled me into the police van to sit with him. Yeah, but he
was that the first time you'd heard him speak then?
I didn't hear him. It was he told the woman.
Oh wow!
The woman told us, that's my mummy's car. And my brother one time told me, he asked him, he said to him, I know you can speak, you know. He goes, why don't you speak? And he goes, because I don't want to. And that was it.
Oh.
Now, that's my brother told me that. That was
wow.
That's the conversation he had with him.
So
and then, yeah, but like, because I just used to feed him with information. I still educated him anything like that. So when he did start talking at 4 or 5, everything came out. Everything I said, everywhere we'd been. I remember when I was 3. I remember and he'd go back and tell me how old he was and what he remembered from that time.
Wow.
So this is why I say always just keep teaching, even if they're not ready to talk to you. Keep teaching your children. Put all that information into them.
Yeah.
You know, it's worth it. It's worth it, and it's been proved time and time again with this children that's come through my setting.
So when your son was going through education, and you'd already identified for yourself through your own education that some things weren't done in a way that everyone could learn or whatever else.
Yeah.
What were some of the main concerns that you had for him, finding out that he had autism and then going through the education system? That
they weren't going to teach him. Because, like, for instance, he was born in February, and he started in September, so he started at 4, and you're not legally obliged to be full-time in school till the age of 5.
Right.
But a lot of children start at 4, so they used that part of the law to put him on part-time.
Oh, really?
Oh, yes, I had to go and drop him in the morning and go back and get him in the afternoon at lunchtime.
Yeah.
And then they were also taking him out because it was co-located with a special school. It was a hearing and sight school, so that the school was co-located with them. And they used to take him, so he used to go off with them and they'd take him to the donkeys. But because I was training...
The donkeys... When we say the donkeys, it's like a farm.
I call it... I just called it the donkeys. anyway, yeah, it's a big place, right? Yeah. And they got them in the buggies and I took them to the donkeys. Well, I went in a different sphere because I was training by then. And I went with another provision that I was with. And I looked and I thought, why is he coming here? So I went back and said, he's not going there again.
What was your objection to him going there?
It had no purpose.
It was just
something for them to do or to say they do. Well, I'm sure a lot of children enjoyed it, but there was no actual educational purpose to it.
Right, okay.
But now I can look back at it and think maybe they're thinking about the language and everything. But it just wasn't right for what I thought my child could do.
Yeah. And
I thought it was a waste of his time.
Yeah.
So I told him I says, I've been to the donkeys. And I don't want him to go again because I think it's a waste of time and he should be doing something more constructive in school.
I'm getting the sense that it was just similar to your own story about just giving him things to do. Like there wasn't anything constructive in what those things were supposed to achieve. That's what I
believe so, because I don't think they were monitoring anything, or it was just filling up the time. Yeah, because they didn't argue with me after that about it when I says no, and I says, well, what's the purpose? So that's when, as a parent, you start having to think, what are they doing with the objectives in the statement? Well, it was a statement then, the EHCP. Are they meeting them, or are they just coasting? Which is happens a lot now. Getting their provision met.
Yeah.
The section F, they're not getting the provision met. So that's what a lot of parents are going to fight for now. They're going to mediation, etc., etc.
Is that what they come to you about as well? Some of that?
Some, yes, a lot of them come for education mainly, but then, because they start talking to me and they realise I understand their journey, and that's how I got caught in helping and supporting parents as much as I do.
One of the things I saw, specifically in lockdown, was parents, friends having almost meltdowns about having so much access to their own children because, you know, they weren't at school. It was a lot, you know, everyone had their own struggles with lockdown. But there was this real overwhelm of sense of having to do it all. And I wonder, it made me think, is it, and I'm asking you, do many parents, are they just kind of sending them off to school hoping that it will all get sorted there? Because you talk about the teamwork, and it makes me wonder, well, why isn't the teamwork happening? Why isn't that taking place?
Different people, different things, different knowledge, how educated you are about the situation. And parents need to have faith in themselves and know that it's going to be a battle, but you have to know what you're battling for. You can't just trust education system because I've seen it let them down many a time. But some people, they just accept the label and then they go into this, oh, he's not going to do this because the label said so. They're not actually looking and seeing for themselves the potential in their own child. The label said they're not supposed to do this, so they're not going to do it. They don't push it. Now I will try everything, it's for the child to show you that they can't do something. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try it in the first place, you know.
Yeah, so don't just necessarily
accept. And that applies to education too.
Education, yeah.
Just because they might struggle in certain areas doesn't mean you should not educate them at all. Now, because I'm fortunate, I control my curriculum in my environment. Now, I've had like my husband and my son who qualified in psychology. I've seen them, they've gone into different environments, special environments, and they come back and the stories. And it depresses them because they think there's so much more they could be doing. Some children are in special schools, and this is experience, and I know this for a fact. In 2 or 3 different children, they're allowed to come in and sit in the classroom. If they want to cover their head and sit in the corner all day, that's allowed.
Okay.
What is the point in that? Because they think, oh, this is what they do, so they just allow it.
So there's no challenge of that behaviour?
No, there's not challenging. If the child says, I'm going to... Yeah, there's too many children sitting with their head covered in a classroom.
In a situation like that, so there's a young child, head covered, and the teachers probably just left them, like as you've mentioned. What would you do different? How? Because if that's not a beneficial situation, what should be taking place?
Try to engage.
Engage
them, find the interest, get down on their level, don't let that be the norm. Because if you let these things happen from the start, it becomes a routine, it becomes the schedule, and it's hard to change them. You don't let things go on too long if you're hoping to change it.
Do you think the teachers are too overwhelmed though? Because I mean that we hear stories so much about.
I'm talking about in a special school.
Oh, in a special school.
So that's not about because there's a decent amount of staffing, but the thing about it is a lot of staff aren't qualified because you get a lot of agency staff.
Right.
It's retention in a special school.
Yeah.
Is difficult.
Right.
Yeah, because people go for the job, but they don't realise there's more to it than just going into school as a job. There's more to it than that. And then that's when they go and find something else.
So you've gone to uni, you're studying, you've done everything, and then one day you call and said you're going to set up this company.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you told me the name straight away, but it was Diamonds in the Rough.
Diamonds in the Rough. Yes.
What happened? Where did the inspiration come from?
Okay, education. My son, I was watching how he was educated, and I also wanted to get, you remember I said I liked education, and I was just going to be a teaching assistant, and I started doing that, and I just like to see children learn. I also thought about the children that my children were going to be mixing with. That was very important to me because, you know, when you're growing up, I grew up with children that were just so totally different to how we were raised, because we were always raised with manners. And, you know, like a child saying, what? When teachers asked them, called them, that was abhorrent to me, you know, because like, you're saying what to the teacher? Because we weren't grown like that. And I was thinking, my boys are going to be growing up with these children now, and I wanted to know what type of children they were growing up with. So I got myself into education. I was going to go into education for that reason anyway, as a teaching assistant. And but then I was doing the training. I was doing the 2-year diploma course, and the teacher says to me, "Why are you doing this? Why don't you become a teacher?" And I thought, And plus, also, I wanted to be a educational psychologist, because I'd seen how she'd come and done the reports and the reviews with my child. I said, I like that job, but you had to be a teacher to be an educational psychologist as well. Yes, so that's how I went into further education. After I finished my diploma, I went to uni.
Okay, so you went to uni,
but
then how did you end up setting up the business?
Because what I found in all my training and everything like that, for some reason, when I went to a training, I used to end up with getting the children who were with learning difficulties and everything. And I didn't find that there was high expectations for these children. So, and you know, I'm about education. Give them a chance, see if they can learn. Because if I'd listened to the professionals, I'd have written my own son off. You know, so I believe in education. I believe children have a chance. Every child should have a chance for an education, and I didn't think that children with SEN were getting it. So that's how I started.
That's how you started.
I started because as a believer in education, because I know in the school system it was too hard. You couldn't do. I know how it is to be a teacher and have to deal with 30-odd kids. Their job is not easy. I'm not taking that away from them. So I know it from a teaching aspect. I know it from a parental aspect, you know. And then you just think about how you grew up and how schooling was, and for people in your environment. And I've got brothers, I've got uncles, and cousins. I know how it was in school for Black children. Because like my sister, my organisation primarily started also because when I was finding out about autism and I went to training, there were no Black people, there were no Asian people at these training events. We were not represented, we were not. And you got to understand that culturally we are different, and we will raise children different, and we all will do things differently. So I started Diamonds as a Rough as culturally aware service. But also believe in education, to give them the support, parents the support they needed, because you'll find, I'm open to everybody, but you found that Black and Asian parents were coming because they felt that their children weren't getting an education in school. A lot of the challenges these days is that the parents, they don't feel that their child's getting what's written in their plan. Now remember, your plan, your educational healthcare plan, is a legal document. And they're not getting it's not being treated as such. Because if it's legally required for you to do this to support this child, if you're not delivering that and just trying to wash over it and not even inform, unless the parent knows and they dig deep into it and see, is this being met, is that being met, they'll just quite happily let them go along and not inform them that they aren't meeting the needs. And then we've had situations where the school have literally lied and say we can meet their needs, and they can't. And I'm thinking, why don't you just let them go? Why are you keeping them? You're saying you're going all the way around the houses to keep this child. What is it? Must be funding.
Yeah.
Why can't you say you're not meeting their needs? I've had a parent. Well, she's a parent carer for her. Yeah. And she went to tribunal. She wrote a case study. I have a case study. She used me as an example. And what I was doing with the child to what the school was doing with it, with the child. And they ignored it. Local authority ignored it, told them that the school is not meeting the child's needs. Here's the evidence and how they're not meeting the needs. She evidenced everything because she had a background in law, and they still ignored it.
How can they ignore it if it's a legal document?
This is me now. They're all in cahoots. They're all in cahoots. And anytime anything starts to get too wrong, that member of staff disappears. Now, it could be a coincidence, but it's a very, very ongoing coincidence because remember, I've been in this a long time and they could be battling and someone's done something and told lies and misinformed. And when you're about to nail them, they disappear.
How do you manage to find the space internally to be able to advocate for these parents? Because I can see that you're very passionate about it all as well. And I suppose walking into these spaces where you know that there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of paperwork, there's a lot of pencil pushing at the same time. How do you still find, what do you draw from to allow you to really help you to actually just keep going?
Well, it's funny you asked that because last year was the last year I'm going to do that kind of fighting because it wasn't healthy for me. I'm not taking it on and I don't see change. Everything was like, when it came to battling the local authority, it was fruitless. A waste of time and energy, my time and energy. Okay, I feel for the parents. I do, but I can't take it on anymore. So I'm going to focus on making my provision and building that supportive community amongst each other so it's not all on me. Because everyone's got their own skills. Parents, I've met parents who I would have them on board because they feel like me about the situation. I would work with them in a heartbeat. I've got parents who are, one parent, she's a headmistress, she goes, so when are we opening our school? And I says, oh yeah, we did talk about that, didn't we? But the problem with that is Ofsted cannot really regulate a place like mine because they have no idea of why I'm doing things, my bespoke curriculum. National Autistic Society, they closed down their schools. They were independent and they've taken them off because they can just come in there without the idea and know how things run and close you down, withdraw all the students. Let's look at this now. I'm speaking about it and they ain't gonna like it.
No.
But it's the truth. It's my truth as a parent, as a professional. Yeah. I could have people lining up around this place talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, the amount of children that are getting deregistered now. Home education.
What is deregistering?
They're deregistering from the formal education and home educating them.
Really?
Because
there is a rise in that, isn't there?
It is just every week. I'm on loads of forums and every week there's just parents coming on again and again saying, I'm going to deregister my child. 4, 5, 10, year 10s. They've had enough because it's also causing their children emotional damage. So they're just trying to protect their child and it's happening a lot.
This is the first time you've really spoken, to be fair, isn't it? Like about... I
talk to parents, but we're all on the same page.
Yeah, but it's the first time you've spoken, I would say, publicly about some of the challenges and what's going on behind the scenes, because we wouldn't have a clue without this voice, without understanding, you know, what's taking place.
But what I'm saying is just not me alone. If you get into the right, if you go on, you can get so many people saying exactly the same thing. They're all fighting. We're just not together fighting.
So what is the solution? How do you see the problem being solved?
I think that maybe we should be working in our own communities. We know what resources we have in our own communities.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the way to go, that everybody just have a main hub and everybody contribute, because I get a lot of parents that will help other parents. And, you know.
How would that look
That's what I'm trying to think now. How is this going to look? Now, ideally, I want the centre.
Yeah.
That would be the main hub.
Yeah.
And there you can have inclusive projects like the sports projects, the media projects, because there's loads of talent and loads of interests. So you just got to be in the position to feed those interests.
So what you're saying is, would it be that there be community or other community organisations or parents working to educate the children?
Not working to make everything better. Education, that's my bag.
What are the statistics around Black and Asian
or
children within the SEND space? Like, do they statistically do worse, or, you know, in the education setting?
Honestly, you know, I've given up on statistics because I've been in this a long time. Statistics are just there. Mm-hmm. And the real amount to say that we're doing this year and we're going to give you this money. And I've seen the same thing be reeled out time and time again. Mm-hmm. So I'm just waiting and work with the people that have come to me. That's what I've focused on, really and truly. Mm-hmm. And majority, 98% of the parents that come to me are Black and Asian.
Mm-hmm. And what is their experience? What are they experiencing with their children?
A lot of them have come because they feel that the school's trying to get rid of their child.
Right.
Those are the ones in mainstream. The ones in mainstream, they come to me because they feel that the school's trying to get rid of their child. Well, or the school keeps phoning them every day saying, come and get your child, mm-hmm. illegally, actually, that is. But yeah, so they come and they want to give them tuition. Mm. And a lot of them, they've been proved that if they can learn in my environment, mm-hmm. and the school has them 5 days a week, and they can learn. School's doing something wrong, and that's just too much of a coincidence that a lot of Black and Asian people have this experience, especially the black children. Yeah. It's spread all over now, though. But like in the beginning, that was my clientele. Yeah. And sometimes they come and tell me the story about what's happening at school, and I know that the school's aiming to try and get rid of them. Just by what they're putting in place.
Well, why are they trying? Why do they want to get rid of the child?
They don't understand the child. But then let's just say it straight. There is institutional racism in education. Yeah. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we know that it's nothing new. And like with my own children, I always warn them that you're going to get to an age and they're going to call you aggressive. I knew this from experience from brothers, cousins, everything. And it did happen. Oh, it did happen. I said, you're cute little black boys wanting to touch your hair until your voice gets a little deeper. And you start to get taller. And then that's when you can get aggression thrown at you. Right. And they called me from school to say, my son, the one on the spectrum, but I'd already told him about this, that this is going to happen. Yeah. Saying that he was aggressive in class. It was a student maths teacher. He's this, that, and that. So I came up to school and I had the head of year and the class teacher and a student and someone else was in there. And I said, explain how he was aggressive. She could not tell me. What was it? I said, what was aggressive? What did he do that was actually aggressive? She had nothing to tell me. She couldn't say how he was aggressive, but this is the narrative that's been pushed, hasn't it?
It's sad that we have to experience that, because whether he was in a class and felt frustrated or whatever, I don't know what was going on.
She could not explain nothing. There was nothing that she could say to say that he was aggressive. So if you're going to use that term, explain it to me, please.
And do the parents that you work with now, do they have that same?
They've had the same.
Same, right.
They've had the same. They've been calling up to school. they've had the same issues, and they're trying to make out the child can't stay in the school environment because they need to go into a special school and everything like that. Now, these special schools have their purpose, but not for every child, because I was concerned about learned behaviours, piling on different learned. So that's not a place that you just push the child because you don't know how to do behaviour management.
So, diamonds in the rough now. As I mentioned at the beginning, it advocates for parents. It's got the tutor centre, and also, you do a lot of championing around inclusive education.
Yeah.
So tell me about where you are now, because this company, it's been 10 years, 12 years?
Yeah, going on to 15 years.
Going on to 15 years.
Yes, it's evolved
Massively.
Started as a tuition centre, but also with parental support. So I still go into attend meetings in school. Last year was tribunal and a mediation meeting after tribunal and mediation meeting. So I still do that, but I've got an education centre. The children come and it's an education they were going to receive.
Right.
And they do very well, to be honest with you.
Yes, I was going to say, tell me about some of your students.
If early intervention is important, the ones I've had early intervention with, a couple of them have gone into grammar.
Wow.
Yes.
Grammar school.
Yes.
And this is something they said they wouldn't be able to do, isn't it? Yeah.
Because the parents come back to me years later. You get a phone call out of the blue and said, I just wanted to tell you. Yeah. And other children that the parents out there were trying to get rid of them out of school, they're getting star of the week and going up in assembly and everything like that. Wow. It's just putting that how you learn, giving them that opportunity, because they've got a different way of learning. Some children have a different way of learning. You just find that way and you adapt and you differentiate and you get in there and give them a chance.
What do you think schools need to do to be able to do what you've just said? What needs to take place?
Teachers. I do understand that they're overwhelmed, because we've got a sister that's a teacher. We know how it is. She didn't want me to go into teaching. She thought, I don't want you to have my life. when I started training, she said, no, I don't want this to be your life. So they do have that, but there's all this paperwork, all of that, and they're not even trained to deal with children on the spectrum or SEN.
So you think there needs to be more training in SEN?
Yes, because when I was teacher training at Warwick, it was an hour and a half. That was their SEN training.
Their SEN training.
And because I knew so much, I was disgusted. I was like, what's this? And I thought, so how do you expect them to know? Training is essential. They need more training. But as I said, a lot of them didn't come into teaching to work with children with SEN. Even in the special schools, there's a lot of agency stuff that comes through, and they're not qualified.
So it's a big problem then if they're moving SEN children into mainstream.
How are they going to do this?
Not doing the training.
I want to know how they're going to do this, because we've been crying about training all the time. For years and years. And now they want to go and do this.
The way you've described things can almost sound like there's no hope, but there must be a glimmer. You must see a glimmer of hope somewhere in terms of what can actually be done. Because you said you believe in education.
Yes, strongly.
Yeah, education.
For all.
Education for all. So everybody should have access to that. And from what I'm picking up, it sounds like it's really on the parents as well to be to work with people like yourself, or to kind of advocate for the child where the child can't advocate for themselves. Would you agree?
Oh, you definitely have to be a child's champion.
Yeah.
And their voice, if they don't have one of their own, because it's not often listened to anyway. Yeah. In regards to the children, they say children has children's voice. They've had campaigns, but they're not listening to the children's voice. So you, as parents in this system, do not expect those in authority and those who produce policies and the government to do what's right by your children, or SEN in general. Yeah. It's not working. They don't have enough experience or knowledge about it. As a parent, you know left, right, and centre, dealing with medical teachers. you have to look into the future. They're just in there for a short term.
So what would you say is the solution then? Because it sounds like it's not at the top from the system level.
It's us as parents.
Grassroots.
It's a grassroots thing. That's what I was trying to say before in regards to as a community. But there'll be lots of little communities which we can all interact, but you've got to see what's in your area, what can you make more inclusive, what can you involve. Because I used to go to many networking as a CIC, and you'd have people with championing their cause, and all I had to say was, how inclusive is it? Because you can be saying, we do this for the young people and blah, 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 blah. But as soon as I said, how inclusive is it, they'd just be quiet. Because it's not inclusive. There's a lot of times there's no space or place for our children with SEN.
Right. So it's about creating
at grassroots level. And it will take involvement with parents because they know they've got more attachment to it. It's not just to get me voted for the next year or whatever. It's not about that. It's not even about earning a wage, because the parents, this is about your child and their future. So that is, we'd have to have accessible funding and make things just more, stop fighting us because we're not doing things the way you want to tell us to do things, which we know isn't correct.
Right.
And you don't know it's correct, but you're still trying to. It's just like a hierarchy and a power play. Because I look at, and you don't understand, you don't know, but you still want to sit in this position like, this is how we're going to do it. How can you honestly say this is how we're going to do it when you don't know?
Especially, and that's
who's advising you?
The interesting thing is about having that lived experience which you as parents have, which is why which is why.
There you go. And I'm not alone.
No. It doesn't sound like you're alone.
And the thing is, my child is done fine. He's living his own life. But I'm that's brilliant. But then there's people who came after, and that's the ones I'm fighting for now, because he's okay. He's cool.
Yeah.
You know.
So that leads me to my last question then, because as I do with every guest, you know, we've talked a lot about the education system and how it's, I suppose, failing. It is failing.
It is not fit for purpose.
Right.
Yeah, I said it. It is not fit for purpose. That's my thumbnail.
How it's not fit for purpose for children with special education needs. And I would probably go a step even further to say children with special education needs who are from global majority communities, Black, Asian.
Yes, that's another story
a whole
altogether.
Layer. Yeah,
yes.
I can imagine.
Trust me.
So then that brings me to the question then. So how do you envision, what would you like to see happening in your social corner in 5 years' time? That is the corner of society that you are trying to make social change. And for you, it's about inclusive education for all.
Yeah.
What would you like to see happening in 5 years' time in that corner?
In 5 years' time, I would like a community building that everybody, like a hub that everybody can come to if they need, you know, for that support, for that inclusion, for the activities, education, everything under one roof. And it's not just like separating SEN. I'm talking it's a community.
Yeah.
It's not just about have access, mixed communities, everything. For instance, children on the spectrum who do not have language, they're taught Makaton. Now, Makaton is just a communication. Why aren't we using BSL, British Sign Language? Why choose something that just separates them again? Why can't we use BSL? Because it's become a legal language now. This is a language that can be taught.
Makaton.
British Sign Language is now a language.
Yeah.
It's been recognised.
Right.
So, and it can be taught in schools, taken as your GCSE and everything like that. So why are we not teaching them British Sign Language instead, so they can open up their community? They can communicate with deaf people. They can communicate with with anyone, because some people will take it for GCSE.
Right.
Why are we just teaching them Makaton and just keeping them in that's still separate? Who learns Makaton?
No, I don't know.
You won't know about it until you're actually in the end stream. I didn't even go through the Makaton route. Yeah. Because I realised, because I talk and they learn, and you just find your way to connect with them and they understand. So I'm not really, different things for different folks though.
Different things for different folks, but definitely that sense of community, that central hub, that place where all can go, all are included, and education is celebrated.
Because education for all. And if you put them in this environment, if you have this environment available, you'd be surprised, because parents will come and volunteer. Parents will come and put their time in because it benefits their own child as well. It's not just about the parents I meet. It's like a different breed. There's some, and it's not just about theirs, it's about the whole community, because that's where their child has to live. And we're not going to be around forever. Wow. So what's happening? So what's going to happen to them? You've got to think, there's too much to put in place. But it will be better if you think that you're not alone and you have your own little community and hub where other parents who understand, but you've got to know each other over the years. You've done festivals. Yeah, we're trying to do that for summer. You know, things that bring them together and just, because they are busy. Some parents, you just see them, they just work, they've got other kids. Some busy, but at least to have the opportunity.
That opportunity.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is what is necessary, because too many people are isolated and on their own. Yeah.
Well, it sounds like a great idea. It sounds like somebody should be championing it.
I am. I'm fighting for this. Right now. I am fighting it because, they're closing down a lot of council buildings. Yeah. Give me one.
So, well, there's an appeal there, definitely. But Jackie, I just want, we're out of time, but I just want to say thank you for coming on. Thank you for being so honest as well, because I know this was difficult in terms of, just speaking it how it is. Thank you for being so honest, and thank you for being that beacon of hope for parents that are really struggling with where to go. And we're going to be including some information after this episode as well of how they can actually find you. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everybody.